The space station Harmony Point floated in the dark void between two solar systems. It was a neutral ground, built by 12 different alien races to host meetings and trade talks. Today, it would witness something that would change the galaxy, forever. Ambassador David Ross adjusted his formal blue uniform as he walked through the station's main corridor. His footsteps echoed on the metal floor. Behind him, 2 human security guards followed at a respectful distance. Ross was nervous, but he didn't show it. He had been a diplomat for 20 years. This was just another meeting. "Sir," the Vulcan. "Delegation is already in the main hall," said Lieutenant Barnes, one of his guards. Barnes was young, maybe 25, with sharp eyes that never stopped watching for danger. "Good," Ross replied. "The sooner we start, the sooner we can go home." Ross carried a small briefcase in his left hand. Inside were the documents that could bring peace between Earth and the Vulcan Empire. The treaty was fair. Earth would keep its current colonies and the Vulcans would have their territory. Trade routes would be shared. No one would attack anyone else. It seemed simple enough. The main hall of Harmony Point was huge. A massive dome overhead showed the stars outside. Alien species from across the galaxy had come to watch this historic meeting. The reptilian Altarians sat in one section. The insect-like hive queens buzzed quietly in another. Everyone knew this was important. At the center of the hall stood a raised platform. On one side sat the human delegation, just Ross and his 2 guards. On the other side sat the Vulcans. The Vulcans were not pleasant to look at. They stood 8 feet tall with thick gray skin that looked like stone. Their faces had no nose, just 2 slits for breathing. Their eyes glowed red in the dim light. Each Vulcan wore heavy armor decorated with the bones of their enemies. War Prime Thok was their leader. He was bigger than the others, with scars covering his face and arms. Those scars were marks of honor in Vulcan culture. The more scars you had, the more battles you had won. "Ambassador Ross," Thok spoke in broken English. His voice was like grinding rocks. "You bring treaty?" "Yes, War Prime," Ross replied politely. He opened his briefcase and pulled out the documents. "This agreement will benefit both our peoples. Trade, peace, and mutual respect." Thok looked at the papers but didn't touch them. Instead, he stood up slowly. His armor made loud clanking sounds as he moved. "Humans think they are smart," Thok said loudly so everyone in the hall could hear. "You think words on paper mean something. You think we care about your weak ideas." Ross felt his heart skip a beat. This wasn't going as planned. "War Prime, surely we can discuss." "No," Thok roared. The sound echoed through the hall. "There is nothing to discuss. Humans are weak. You send one old man with papers instead of warriors. This shows us what you really are." Lieutenant Barnes stepped forward, his hand moving toward his weapon. "Sir, I think we should leave." But it was too late. Thok pulled out a massive curved blade from his belt. The weapon was 3 feet long and covered in strange alien writing. The other Vulcans stood up as well, all drawing their weapons. "In Vulcan culture," Thok announced to the watching crowd, "we have a saying. Words are for the weak. Action is for the strong. Today, I will show the galaxy what happens to those who think they can bargain with the Vulcan Empire." Ross raised his hands. "Please, there's no need for violence. We can work this out." "Violence?" Thok laughed, a horrible sound like breaking glass. "This is not violence. This is a lesson." The alien spectators began to murmur nervously. Some started to leave their seats. The Altarian Elder Voss stood up and spoke in his deep, wise voice. "War Prime Thok, this breaks all laws of diplomatic immunity. Ambassador Ross is here under the protection of—" "Silence!" Thok pointed his blade at the Elder. "Your ancient laws mean nothing. Today, new rules begin." Ross looked around desperately. The exit was too far away. His guards were outnumbered, 10 to 1. The other alien species watched but did nothing. They were here to observe, not to fight. "My death will not bring you what you want," Ross said quietly. "Earth will not surrender because you kill one man." Thok smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. "Earth will surrender when they see what we do to those who oppose us." Your people are soft. They live in comfort and safety. They have never known real war. One taste of Velkan strength and they will beg for mercy. You don't understand, Ross said, his voice steady despite his fear. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, Thok replied. I'm ending this charade. The blade came down fast. Lieutenant Barnes and Sergeant Cole, Ross's other guard, tried to help, but the Velkans were too quick and too strong. Within seconds, it was over. The hall fell completely silent. Ambassador David Ross, Earth's first interstellar diplomat, lay still on the cold metal floor. His briefcase had fallen open, and the peace treaty papers scattered in the artificial wind from the station's air system. Thok cleaned his blade on a piece of cloth and put it back in his belt. He looked around the hall at all the shocked alien faces. Let this be a message to all who watch, he declared. The Velkan Empire does not negotiate. We take what we want. Earth has been warned. The Velkan delegation marched out of the hall, their heavy boots echoing like thunder. The alien spectators sat in stunned silence. Many had lived for hundreds of years and had never seen anything like this. Elder Voss of the Altarians slowly walked to where Ross lay. He knelt down and gently closed the human's eyes. Foolish Velkans, he whispered to himself. You have no idea what you have just awakened. In the station's communication center, the news was already being broadcast across the galaxy. Every human, colony, every Earth outpost, every ship in space received the same message. Ambassador David Ross was dead, murdered during a peace negotiation. The message reached Earth 12 hours later. Thok thought he had sent a message of strength and fear. Instead, he had lit a fire that would burn across the galaxy. The Velkans had made their first and final mistake. They had killed Earth's ambassador, and now they would learn why humans were the only species that brought their wars with them to the stars. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when you awakened a sleeping giant. The news hit Earth like a lightning bolt. President Maria Santos was eating breakfast in the White House when her emergency phone rang. The red phone only rang for one reason: a crisis that could threaten all of humanity. Madam President, came the voice of Defense Secretary Tom Bradley. His voice was shaking. We need you in the Situation Room immediately. It's about Ambassador Ross. Santos put down her coffee cup. Something in Bradley's tone made her stomach turn cold. What happened? Ma'am, he's dead. The Velkans killed him during the peace talks. They broadcast it live to the entire galaxy. The president sat in silence for 5 seconds. Then she stood up, her face turning hard as stone. Get me every world. Leader on secure line. Now. Within 1 hour, something happened that had never occurred in human history. Every major leader on Earth was connected on the same call. Presidents, prime ministers, kings, chancellors, all of them together for the first time ever. The conversation was short. They killed our ambassador, Santos said simply. They murdered him in cold blood while he was trying to make peace. What do we do? Asked Prime Minister Robert Chen of the European Federation. We show them what happens when you attack humanity, replied President Viktor Kozlov of the Russian Republic. For the first time in centuries, Earth spoke with one voice. Every nation, every government, every military force would work together. The old enemies became allies in a single moment. General Marcus Webb was called from his retirement home in Colorado. At 65, Webb had fought in the last major Earth conflicts before the Great Peace. He was the only human alive who understood large-scale warfare. General Webb, President Santos said over the video call, we need you to lead our response. Webb looked at the screen with tired eyes. He had hoped never to see war again. Madam President, I need to know, are we talking about a police action or total war? They killed our ambassador on live television, Santos replied. What do you think? Webb nodded slowly. Then I'll need full authority over all military forces on Earth and in the colonies. I'll need every factory, every shipyard, every resource we have. You have it. Webb walked to his old study and opened a safe he hadn't touched in 20 years. Inside were plans, secret military projects that Earth had developed just in case humanity ever faced an alien threat. The politicians had called it paranoia. Webb had called it Preparation. The first project was codenamed Fortress Earth. Within hours, massive orbital defense platforms that had been disguised as space stations began revealing their true nature. Weapons that could destroy entire fleets emerged from hidden bays. Shield generators that could protect whole continents came online. The second project was Ghost Fleet, hidden in asteroid belts and behind moons. Secret shipyards had been building warships for 50 years. These weren't exploration vessels or cargo ships. These were pure weapons of war, designed by humans who remembered what it meant to fight. For survival, Admiral Kate Morgan received a call at the Luna Naval Base. She was Earth's youngest admiral, only 42 years old, but she had the respect of every officer in the fleet. "Admiral," came Webb's voice, "I need you to bring our people home." "Sir?" "Every human colony, every outpost, every mining station. Bring them all back to Earth's protection. We're about to have visitors, and they won't be friendly." Morgan understood. Immediately. Within hours, the largest evacuation in human history began. Transport ships that had been carrying cargo suddenly switched to carrying people. Civilian vessels were pressed into service. The scattered children of Earth came home, but not everyone ran. On the mining world of New Haven, Colony Administrator Bill Jackson received the evacuation order. He looked at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. "Chief," he called to his security head, a tough woman named Lisa Rodriguez. "How many people want to leave?" Rodriguez checked her list. "About half, sir. The other half want to stay and fight." Jackson nodded. "Then we stay and fight. Send a message to Earth. Tell them New Haven stands ready." Similar messages came from dozens of colonies. Humans who had never seen war, who had lived peaceful lives among the stars, suddenly found a fighting spirit they didn't know they had. On Earth itself, the transformation was incredible to watch. Factories that made cars began making tanks. Shipyards that built cruise ships started building destroyers. Citizens who had never held weapons lined up at recruiting stations. Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's lead scientist, received a visit from General Webb himself. "Doctor," Webb said, "I need to know about Project Deep Strike." Kim's face went pale. Deep Strike was humanity's most secret weapon project. Technology that could move ships across vast distances instantly. It had been theoretical until now. "General, the tests have been successful, but we've never tried it on a large scale. How large could we go?" "With the right power source, maybe an entire fleet." Webb smiled grimly. "Then we're about to find out what happens when humans bring their entire military across the galaxy in the blink of an eye." The Velkans, meanwhile, celebrated their victory. War Prime Thok held a great feast in his palace on the Velkan homeworld. His generals praised him for showing strength to the weak humans. "They will surrender within days," declared General Krex. "No species can stand against Velkan power. The humans are probably crying and begging for mercy right now," laughed another general. Thok raised his cup of victory wine. "Today we showed the galaxy that the Velkan Empire fears no one. Soon we will rule from one end of space to the other." None of them noticed the small probe that drifted past their homeworld. It looked like space junk, but it was actually Earth's most advanced spy satellite. It recorded everything: the celebration, the military positions, the weaknesses in their defenses. Back on Earth, Webb watched the footage with cold eyes. "They're celebrating," reported his intelligence chief, Colonel Park. "Good," Webb replied. "Let them celebrate. It will make what comes next even more shocking." The president's voice came over the intercom. "General, the world leaders are ready for your briefing." Webb straightened his uniform and walked to the Global Command Center. On screens around the room, he could see the faces of every major leader on Earth. Behind them stood their military commanders, all waiting for orders. "Ladies and gentlemen," Webb began, "they wanted to send us a message. Now we're going to send them one. By the time we're finished, every species in the galaxy will understand why humans are different." He pressed a button, and holographic displays showed the secret fleets, the hidden weapons, the sleeping giant that Earth had become. Operation Awakening begins now. Across human space, warships that had waited in darkness for decades powered up their engines. The most dangerous species in the galaxy was finally ready to show what they could do. Elder Voss of the Altarian Collective had lived for 800 years. He had seen the rise and fall of empires, the birth of new species among the stars, and the end of countless wars. But he had never seen anything like what the humans were doing. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at New Geneva. In that time, Velkan fleets had attacked 12 human colonies. They expected easy victories. Instead, they found nightmares. At Alpha Station, humans had turned the entire asteroid mining facility into a weapon. When the Velkans approached, the humans launched the asteroids themselves at the enemy ships. Rocks moving at incredible speeds became missiles that no armor could stop. At New Tokyo Colony, the humans had vanished completely. The Velkans landed expecting to find a surrendered population. Instead, they found empty buildings filled with traps. Explosions followed the Velkan. Soldiers everywhere they went. Snipers picked them off from hidden positions. The humans had turned their own colony into a death maze. Most disturbing of all was what happened at Darwin Station. The Velkans arrived to find the human colonists still there, working normally. But when the Velkans landed, every human, men, women, even children, picked up weapons and fought. They fought in their homes, in their streets, in their schools. They never surrendered, never retreated, never stopped fighting until the last one fell. The galaxy watched these battles with growing horror. Other species fought for territory, for resources, for honor. Humans seemed to fight for something else, entirely, something that made them willing to die rather than lose. Elder Voss decided he needed to understand. He requested a meeting with Earth's leadership. The meeting took place on a neutral station called Haven Point. Elder Voss arrived, with a small delegation of peaceful representatives from various species. General Webb came with Admiral Morgan and a single aide. General Webb, Elder Voss began, his ancient voice filled with concern. The galaxy is watching your war with great worry. We have never seen such intensity and conflict before. Webb looked at the alien elder with steady eyes. Elder Voss, with respect, you've never seen humans fight before. That is precisely what concerns us, interrupted Ambassador Rel of the Hive Queens. Your species fights in ways we do not understand. You turn defeat into victory, death into weapon. This is not normal. Admiral Morgan leaned forward. Normal for who? You species achieved peace by giving up your ability to fight. We achieved peace by becoming so good at fighting that no one wanted to fight us anymore. Explain, Elder Voss requested. General Webb stood and activated a holographic display. It showed Earth's history, thousands of years of constant warfare. Humans fighting humans with swords, guns, bombs, and nuclear weapons. Every other species in the galaxy had to choose, Webb said calmly. Evolve past violence to reach the stars or destroy yourselves. We chose a third option. We took our violence with us. The alien representatives watched the display in silence. Images flashed by. Ancient battles, world wars, tactical innovations that had turned killing into an art form. For thousands of years, Webb continued, humans fought each other. We learned every possible way to wage war. Ground combat, naval warfare, air superiority, space battles, psychological warfare, guerrilla tactics, siegecraft, espionage. We studied war the way you species study science. Elder Voss felt a chill run through his ancient bones. And now you use these skills against the Velkans. No, Webb said quietly. Now we use a tiny fraction of these skills. The Velkans think, they've seen human warfare, they've seen us playing with them. Ambassador Rel's insect-like features showed confusion. Playing? Admiral Morgan pulled up another display. It showed massive ships hidden throughout human space, vessels larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ships fighting the Velkans are our patrol craft, she explained. Our destroyers and cruisers. We haven't used our battleships yet. We certainly haven't used our planet killers. Planet killers, Elder Voss whispered. Weapons designed to end entire worlds, Webb said matter-of-factly. We built them during our Cold War period, when 2 human nations had enough nuclear weapons to destroy Earth 10 times over. We kept building better ones just in case. The alien delegates sat in stunned silence. The idea of weapons that could destroy planets was beyond their understanding. "Why are you telling us this?" Elder Voss asked. "Because we want the galaxy to understand something important," Webb replied. "We don't want to conquer you. We don't want to rule over other species. We just want to be left alone to live in peace." "Then why this terrible war?" "Because the Vulcans killed our ambassador," Admiral Morgan said, her voice turning cold. "They murdered a man who came in peace, who offered friendship and cooperation. They broadcast his death across the galaxy as a sign of their strength." Webb activated another display. This one showed Vulcan worlds, their military bases, their fleet positions. Every detail was perfectly mapped. "We've been watching them since the day they killed Ross," Webb said. "We know where every Vulcan ship is located. We know their supply lines, their weaknesses, their patrol schedules. We could end this war in a single day if we wanted to." "Then why don't you?" Elder Voss asked. "Because we want the galaxy to understand the lesson," Webb replied. "The Vulcans thought humans were weak because we preferred peace to war. They were wrong. We prefer peace because we're very, very good at war." At that moment, Webb's aide handed him a communication device. He listened for a moment, then smiled grimly. "Speaking of lessons," he said to the alien delegates, "would you like to see what happens when humans stop playing?" On the display, a live feed showed the Vulcan fleet approaching the human colony of New Berlin, 50 Vulcan warships, the largest force they had assembled yet. They expected to crush the human defenders and finally break Earth's spirit. Instead, they found something waiting for them that shouldn't have existed. A human dreadnought. The ship was massive, 3 miles long, covered in weapons that glowed with barely contained energy. It sat motionless in space like a sleeping giant. "This is Admiral Kane of the Terran battleship Vengeance," came a calm human voice over the communication channel. "Vulcan fleet, you have entered human space with hostile intent. You have one chance to withdraw." The Vulcan commander laughed over the radio. "One ship against 50? You humans truly are insane." "We're not insane," Admiral Kane replied. "We're just very good at math." The Vengeance opened fire. What happened next would be talked about across the galaxy for generations. The human dreadnought didn't just fight the Vulcan fleet, it dismantled them. Weapons that moved faster than light struck with surgical precision. Vulcan ships exploded one after another, their shields and armor useless against technology they had never imagined. In 10 minutes, it was over. 50 Vulcan warships destroyed or disabled. The Vengeance didn't have a single scratch on its hull. Elder Voss stared at the display in shock. "How is this possible?" General Webb turned off the hologram. "Elder Voss, your species learned to build faster ships, better computers, more efficient energy sources. We learned to build better weapons. Much better weapons. The galaxy must know about this," Ambassador Rell said nervously. "The galaxy will know," Admiral Morgan agreed. "That's the point. We want every species to understand that Earth offers friendship to those who come in peace. But to those who come in war," she gestured to the display showing the destroyed Vulcan fleet. "Well, you've seen what happens to them." Elder Voss left the meeting with a heavy heart. He had come hoping to find a way to end the war. Instead, he discovered that humans were unlike any species the galaxy had ever encountered. They were the apex predators of space itself, and they had only just begun to hunt. The terrible truth was spreading across the galaxy. Humanity wasn't just another species among the stars. They were the species that would determine who else got to exist among the stars. And they were just getting started. War Prime Thok stood in his fortress on the Vulcan homeworld of Velkos Prime. Outside his window he could see the capital city burning. His empire was collapsing around him, and he finally understood the magnitude of his mistake. It had been 6 months since he killed Ambassador Ross. 6 months of watching his fleets disappear one by one. 6 months of learning what it meant to fight a species that had turned warfare into perfection. "War Prime," his aide said nervously. "Subprime Kell requests an audience." Thok snarled. Kel had been leading the opposition to the war from the beginning. The moderate faction believed they should surrender and beg for mercy. Thok still believed the Velkans could win, but his confidence was cracking. Send him in. Subprime Kel entered the chamber. Unlike Thok, who was covered in battle scars, Kel was unmarked. He had won his battles with words, not weapons. His red eyes showed intelligence rather than rage. War Prime, Kel said calmly. The humans have sent us a message. Another demand for surrender? Thok growled. No, an invitation. Thok looked up surprised. What? Kel activated a holographic display. The image of General Webb appeared, looking tired but determined. War Prime Thok. Webb's recorded message began. Tomorrow at dawn, human forces will demonstrate our final capability. We call this Operation Last Chance. After you see what we can do, you will have one opportunity to end this war with honor. If you refuse, there will be no Velkan Empire left to refuse anything. The message ended. Arrogant humans, Thok muttered, but his voice lacked its usual fire. The next morning, every sensor on Velkos Prime was pointed at the sky. The demonstration began at exactly dawn. First, the human fleet appeared. Not the small patrol ships the Velkans had been fighting, but the true Earth Navy. Hundreds of massive dreadnoughts materialized from nowhere, surrounding the Velkan homeworld completely. Each ship was larger than Thok's entire palace complex. Impossible, whispered General Krex, who had been watching from the military command center. Where did they all come from? The answer came from Admiral Morgan's voice, broadcast on all Velkan frequencies. Greetings, Velkos Prime. What you see around your world is just the first wave of Earth's response fleet. We have similar forces surrounding every major Velkan world simultaneously. On the planet's surface, panic began to spread. Citizens looked up to see the sky filled with alien warships, each one capable of destroying their entire civilization. But the humans weren't finished. Phase 2, Admiral Morgan announced. Suddenly, the planetary defense grid that protected Velkos Prime began shutting down. Weapons platforms that had never been touched by enemy forces simply turned off. Shield generators that protected major cities powered down. The communication networks that connected the military command fell silent. How? Thok roared at his technicians. How are they doing this? Colonel Lisa Park's voice came over the emergency channels. This is Colonel Park of Earth Special Operations. For the past 3 months, my teams have been on your world, in your systems, in your networks. We know everything about your technology because we've been controlling it. Thok felt his knees go weak. Human soldiers had been on Velkos Prime for months, moving freely through his capital, his military bases, his most secure facilities. And he had never known. Phase 3, Admiral Morgan continued. The demonstration reached its climax. High above, the planet, a single human ship, smaller than the dreadnoughts but somehow more frightening, powered up a weapon that made the very air around Velkos Prime glow. What you are seeing, came General Webb's voice, is our Planet Killer class vessel final answer. The weapon you see charging has enough power to crack your world like an egg. We have 96 identical ships, each one positioned at a different Velkan world. The energy buildup was visible from the planet's surface. A light brighter than their sun began to form around the human weapon. Every Velkan who saw it understood that their species stood on the edge of extinction. Then, at the last moment, the weapons powered down. However, Webb continued, Earth does not wage war against entire populations. We wage war against those who choose war over peace. War Prime Thok, you have 1 hour to surrender yourself and your military leadership. In return, the Velkan people will be spared, and your empire can continue to exist under new leadership. Thok stood in his fortress, surrounded by the wreckage of his ambitions. His generals were already removing their armor, preparing to surrender. His own people were calling for his head. Subprime Kel approached him one last time. War Prime, it's over. The humans have shown mercy by giving us this choice. Don't force them to show us what they do when mercy is refused. Thok looked out his window at the human fleet filling the sky. In 6 months, the humans had gone from seeming weak and defenseless to demonstrating they could destroy entire star systems without breaking a sweat. They had fought with strategy, technology, and capabilities that no other species possessed. How did we get it so wrong? Thok asked quietly. We judged them by our own standards, Kel replied. We thought a peaceful species must be weak. We didn't understand that they might be peaceful because they were too strong to need constant warfare. Thok removed his armor piece by piece, letting it fall to the floor. Each piece had been won in battle against other species who had challenged Velkan might. Now it all seemed meaningless. I surrender, he said simply. The words were broadcast across the galaxy. The mighty Velkan Empire, conquerors of dozens of worlds, surrendered completely to a species they had dismissed as weak farmers and merchants. 1 week later, Subprime Kel stood where Thok had once ruled. The new Velkan leadership had signed a peace treaty with Earth, not just ending the war, but establishing humans as protectors of this region of space. Elder Voss of the Altarians attended the ceremony on Velkos Prime. He watched as General Webb and the new Velkan leaders signed the agreement that would reshape galactic politics forever. General, Elder Voss said privately, your species could rule the entire galaxy now. Why settle for peace? Webb looked tired. The war had cost him greatly, even in victory. Elder Voss, we never wanted to rule anyone. We just wanted to live in peace and be left alone. Now finally, we can. But surely other species will challenge you in time. Webb smiled sadly. Elder, after what we've shown the galaxy, who would be foolish enough to try? The ceremony concluded with a memorial for Ambassador David Ross. Representatives from across the galaxy attended, laying flowers at a simple monument erected in his honor. The inscription read, He came in peace. He died for peace. He achieved peace. Admiral Morgan stood beside the memorial as the ceremony ended. Think he would approve, sir? She asked Webb. I think Ross would be proud that his death prevented 1,000 wars, Webb replied. Sometimes the greatest diplomacy is showing exactly why diplomacy exists in the first place. As the delegates departed, the galaxy began a new era. Earth had become the ultimate peacekeepers, not through wisdom or negotiation, but through the simple understanding that some species are so dangerous that even their enemies prefer peace. The war was over. The real peace had just begun. And somewhere, in space, Ambassador David Ross's final mission was complete. He had brought peace to the galaxy after all, just not in the way anyone expected. The Alliance Council chamber was built to impress. Massive stone walls stretched up toward a ceiling lost in shadows. The air was thick and hot, filled with gases that would kill most species in minutes. Around the circular table sat the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. Admiral Voss shifted his massive reptilian frame in his chair. His dark scales caught the red light from the lava flows visible through the chamber's windows. As leader of the Kravex people, he had survived the volcanic death world of Magna Prime. Nothing scared him anymore. Or so he thought. General Nyx clicked her sharp claws against the metal table. Her insect-like eyes never blinked as she studied the holographic display floating above them. The Thrix warrior had crawled out of poison gas swamps that dissolved metal. She knew what real danger looked like. 12 species made up the Death World, Alliance. Each came from planets that would terrify normal civilizations. They had earned their place through blood, pain, and the simple fact that they refused to die when the universe tried to kill them. Show us this new world again, Admiral Voss said. His voice was like grinding rocks. The hologram changed. A blue and green planet appeared, slowly rotating in the dim light. It looked almost peaceful. Almost. The humans call it Earth, said Dr. Keth, the Alliance's chief scientist. His gray skin was covered in scars from radiation burns. Our sensors show it as a Class 9 death world. General Nyx leaned forward. Class 9? That's impossible. Nothing intelligent could evolve on a Class 9. That's what we thought too, Dr. Keth replied. He touched a control and the hologram zoomed in. But look at this. The planet's surface filled the display. Vast oceans of liquid water stretched between continents. Storms larger than entire star systems swirled across the surface. Lightning cracked through clouds thick enough to crush buildings. The water covers 70% of the surface, Dr. Keth explained. It's not just water either. It's filled with acid, salt, and creatures that hunt in packs. Commander Zek, a four-armed warrior from the ice world of Frostbite, made a disgusted sound. No one could survive in liquid water. It would dissolve you. The temperatures change constantly, Dr. Keth continued. In some places, it gets hot enough to boil water. In others, it drops so low that the air itself freezes. The weather patterns are completely unpredictable. Admiral Voss studied the display. His people came from worlds where lava rivers were normal, but even they avoided water that hot. What about the life forms? The hologram showed new images. Massive creatures with rows of sharp teeth swimming through the deadly oceans. Land animals that could crush vehicles. Flying beasts with talons like swords. Everything on this planet is designed to kill, Dr. Keth said. The plants are poisonous. The animals hunt in coordinated groups. Even the insects can deliver fatal stings. And humans live there? General Nix asked. Not just live. They thrive. They've built cities, developed technology, and spread across the entire planet. They've even learned to use the dangerous life forms as food sources. The council chamber fell silent. These were beings who had survived the worst worlds in the galaxy. They understood what it meant to fight for survival every day, but Earth sounded worse than anything they had ever faced. How many of them are there? Admiral Voss asked. Over 7 billion. Commander Zek's four eyes widened. Billion? That's more than the entire Alliance population. They reproduce quickly and adapt to new environments, Dr. Keth explained. Our long-range scans show they've learned to survive in every climate on their planet, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. Admiral Voss stood up and walked to the window. Outside, lava bubbled and flowed like a slow river. This was his home. This was comfort. But these humans lived somewhere far worse and called it normal. What do we know about their technology? He asked. Primitive by our standards, but effective. They've developed weapons capable of destroying their own planet several times over. They use controlled explosions to launch vehicles into space. Most interesting, they seem to enjoy making their technology more dangerous than necessary. General Nix's antenna twitched with interest. Enjoy danger? They have something called extreme sports. Activities that serve no purpose except to risk death for entertainment. They jump from great heights, swim with predators, and race vehicles at deadly speeds. The council members looked at each other. They were warriors, survivors, beings who had faced death countless times. But they did it because they had to. These humans seemed to do it for fun. Why should we care about this planet? Asked Captain Rex, whose people lived on worlds where the gravity could crush bones. They're primitive. What use are they to us? Admiral Voss turned back to the group. Because they survived a Class 9 death world. Do you understand what that means? The chamber was quiet except for the distant rumble of volcanic activity. It means they might be tougher than us. General Nix said slowly. Exactly. For centuries, we've been the strongest force in the galaxy. We've dominated because no one else could match our resilience. But these humans... They could be valuable allies, Commander Zek suggested. If they're truly as tough as their world suggests. Admiral Voss nodded. The hegemony has been growing stronger. Those soft-worlders think their advanced technology makes them superior to us. But what if we had allies who were even tougher than we are? You want to invite them to join the Alliance? Dr. Keth asked. I want to see what they're made of first. Send a diplomatic mission, make contact, let them know they're not alone in the universe. General Nix stood up. And if they refuse? Admiral Voss's eyes glowed like hot coals. Then we'll know they're smart as well as tough. But I don't think they'll refuse. From what I've seen, these humans seem to enjoy new challenges. Who should we send? Commander Zek asked. Send Ambassador Tor. He survived first contact with 17 different species. If anyone can handle humans, it's him. The hologram switched off, leaving the chamber in the red glow of lava light. The Alliance leaders sat in silence, each thinking about this new discovery. None of them realized they were about to make the biggest mistake in galactic history. 3 days later, Ambassador Tor's ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. The reptilian diplomat had handled difficult first contacts before. He had negotiated with species that breathed poison and civilizations that communicated through pain. But as his ship approached the small blue world, something felt different. His instruments showed massive energy signatures across the planet's surface. Cities that glowed with power, satellites that watched everything. These humans had been busy. "Open a communication channel," Ambassador Tor ordered his crew. A moment later, a voice came through the speakers. It spoke in a language the ship's computers quickly translated. "Unknown vessel. This is Earth Defense Control. Please state your intentions." Ambassador Tor smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Defense Control." These humans were ready for visitors. Good. He liked dealing with warriors. "This is Ambassador Tor of the Death World Alliance. We come in peace, seeking contact with the human species." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned, sounding different somehow. More alert. "Ambassador, you are cleared to approach Earth orbit. Follow the navigation beacon to Station Alpha. Welcome to our system." As his ship moved toward Earth, Ambassador Tor watched the planet grow larger on his screens. He could see the storms, the vast oceans, the dangerous beauty of humanity's home world. Soon, he would meet these remarkable beings face to face. Soon, the Alliance would learn what humans were really capable of. He had no idea that he was about to witness something that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. 3 months had passed since first contact. The humans had accepted the Alliance invitation with surprising enthusiasm. What worried Admiral Voss was how quickly they had adapted to Alliance technology and customs. Captain Alex Rivera stood in the transport bay of Titan Base, the Alliance's main military station. She was the first human to serve on an Alliance vessel. Her dark hair was tied back in a simple knot, and she wore the standard Alliance uniform without any breathing equipment. "The atmospheric mixture won't hurt you?" asked Lieutenant Torx, a young Kravex officer. His scales were still bright green, showing his inexperience. Most species needed full environmental suits to survive on Titan Base. Alex took a deep breath of the thick, chemical-heavy air. "It's a bit stuffy, but not bad. Reminds me of Mexico City on a smoggy day." Lieutenant Torx didn't understand the reference, but he made a note in his report. The humans seemed to treat dangerous environments like minor inconveniences. Down in the research labs, Dr. Lisa Park was causing similar concerns. The human scientist worked alongside Dr. Keth, studying samples of crystalline formations from the toxic world of Venom Prime. "You should wear protective gloves," Dr. Keth warned as Lisa reached for a sample container. "Those crystals release acid vapors that can dissolve metal." Lisa paused and looked at the container. Then she opened it and carefully lifted out a crystal with her bare hands. "It's warm," she said, turning it to catch the light. "And it smells like vinegar." Dr. Keth's gray skin turned even paler. "You can smell it? Those vapors should have burned your nasal passages." "Humans have a high tolerance for acidic substances," Lisa explained, setting the crystal down gently. "We actually consume mild acids for pleasure. We call them pickles." "You eat acid for fun?" Dr. Keth asked weakly. "Among other things, we also drink ethanol, which is technically poison, and we add capsaicin to our food, which is a chemical weapon that plants use to stop animals from eating them." Dr. Keth made several urgent notes. These humans were not just tough, they were insane. In the military training facilities, things were getting even more disturbing. Lieutenant Commander Jake Stone led a squad of human Marines through what the Alliance considered advanced combat training. The exercise took place in a chamber that simulated the surface of hellfire, a world where the ground was molten rock and the air was filled with burning particles. Alliance soldiers trained here for only 30 minutes at a time, and many suffered burns even with full protective gear. The humans had been inside for 3 hours. General Nix watched through reinforced windows as Jake's team moved through the artificial landscape. They were sweating, but they showed no signs of distress. Worse, they were actually talking and joking with each other. "The temperature in there is hot enough to cook meat," General Nix said to her aide, Captain Vex. "Yes, General. But the humans say it reminds them of something called Arizona in summer." General Nix's compound eyes focused on the display showing the chamber's internal temperature. "Increase the heat by 20%. The temperature rose. The humans noticed, but they simply removed their outer uniform jackets and continued the exercise. 30% more, General Nix ordered. Now the humans were breathing harder, but they were still moving normally. Jake Stone actually smiled as he climbed over a pile of simulated burning rocks. "General," Captain Vex said quietly, "if we increase it more, we'll exceed safety limits for Alliance species." General Nix stared at the humans. They were operating in conditions that would kill most Alliance soldiers, and they were treating it like a mild workout. That evening, the Alliance command staff held an emergency meeting in Admiral Voss's private office. The room was smaller than the main council chamber, but just as intimidating. Weapons from a dozen worlds hung on the walls, trophies from centuries of warfare. "The integration is proceeding too smoothly," Admiral Voss said, pacing in front of a window that showed the gas giant Titan base orbited. "I expected problems, cultural conflicts, adjustment difficulties. The humans are adapting faster than any species we've encountered," reported General Nix. "They're not just surviving our environments, they're thriving in them." Dr. Keth activated a holographic display. "I've been studying their biology. Their bodies are designed for survival in ways we never imagined. They have backup systems for their backup systems." "Explain," Admiral Voss said. "Take their circulatory system. If major blood vessels are damaged, smaller ones can expand to maintain flow. Their bones can heal themselves. Their brains can actually rewire around damaged areas." Commander Zek, attending by hologram from his ship, raised one of his forearms. "That's standard for most species. Not to this degree. Humans can survive losing significant portions of their organs. They can function with half a brain, one lung, one kidney. Some can even survive having their heart stopped for several minutes." The room fell silent. These beings had spent their lives fighting for survival, but they had limits. Everyone had limits. "There's more," Dr. Keth continued. "Their psychological makeup is equally unusual. They have something called stress response. When faced with danger, their bodies release chemicals that make them stronger, faster, and more alert. All species have fear responses," General Nix said. "This isn't fear, it's the opposite. The more dangerous a situation becomes, the better they perform. We've been observing Lieutenant Commander Stone's team. Their accuracy and coordination actually improve under extreme stress." Admiral Voss stopped pacing. "Show me the combat simulation data." The hologram changed to show performance charts. Red lines indicated Alliance soldiers' abilities under stress, steady at first, then declining as conditions worsened. Blue lines showed human performance, rising steadily as danger increased. "This is impossible," Commander Zek said. "No species gets better in worse conditions." "Humans do," Dr. Keth replied. "And there's something else. They seem to enjoy it." "Enjoy combat?" Admiral Voss asked. "Enjoy challenge. I've been monitoring their conversations. When the training gets more difficult, they become more enthusiastic. They use phrases like, 'Now it's getting interesting,' and, 'Finally, something fun.'" General Nix's antennae twitched nervously. "Fun? They think combat training is fun?" According to Dr. Park, humans have entire industries devoted to artificial danger. They pay money to be frightened, to face simulated threats, to test their limits against imaginary enemies. Admiral Voss sat down heavily in his chair. His people had fought for survival on volcanic worlds, but they had never enjoyed it. Survival was serious. Survival was work. "What about their social behavior?" he asked. "Cooperative beyond anything we've seen," Dr. Keth replied. "But also competitive. They work together perfectly, but they also constantly try to outperform each other. It's like they're competing to be the best at cooperation." "That makes no sense," Commander Zek said. It does to them. Watch this. The hologram showed footage from the training facility. Human soldiers were helping each other through obstacles, sharing equipment, covering each other's weaknesses. But they were also keeping track of who performed best, who solved problems fastest, who showed the most improvement. They're trying to win at teamwork, General Nix observed. Exactly, and they're very good at it. Admiral Voss studied the data for a long time. Outside his window, the gas giant's storms raged in patterns that had remained unchanged for millennia. Predictable, stable, unlike these humans. "What's your assessment, Dr. Keth?" he asked finally. The scientist's voice was quiet when he answered. "I think we may have made an error in judgment, Admiral." "How so?" "We invited them because we thought they were like us. Tough survivors who had earned their strength through hardship." Dr. Keth paused. "But they're not like us at all." "Explain." "We survive despite our worlds. We endure hardship because we have to. But humans..." Dr. Keth gestured at the performance, data still glowing in the air. "Humans don't just survive hardship, they use it. They turn every challenge into an opportunity to become stronger." The room was quiet except for the distant hum of Titan Base's life support systems. "Are you saying they're better than us?" General Nix asked. "I'm saying they're different from us in ways we didn't anticipate. We're warriors who have learned to survive. They're survivors who have learned to become warriors." Admiral Voss looked out at the gas giant's swirling storms. For the first time in his life, he wondered if the Alliance had made a mistake that couldn't be undone. "Continue monitoring them," he ordered. "I want to know everything about how they think, how they fight, and how they adapt." "Yes, Admiral," Dr. Keth replied. "But sir?" "What? What if we don't like what we find?" Admiral Voss didn't answer. But as he watched the storms rage outside his window, he began to understand why some questions were better left unasked. The humans were here, now. And something told him that the galaxy would never be the same. The alarm bells rang through Titan Base at 600 hours. Admiral Voss had called an emergency meeting of the High Command. In the main briefing room, holographic displays showed star maps filled with red warning markers. "The hegemony has made their move," Admiral Voss announced to the gathered officers. His massive form cast shadows across the room as he gestured at the displays. "Their fleets are massing at the neutral zone." General Nix studied the tactical information. "How many ships?" 3,000 vessels, more than we've ever seen them deploy at once. Admiral Voss touched a control and the display zoomed in on specific fleet formations. "They have new weapons. Our scouts report energy signatures we don't recognize." Commander Zek's image flickered as his hologram stabilized. "The soft-worlders are finally showing their teeth. What's our response?" "We fight as we always have," General Nix said. "The Alliance has never backed down from the hegemony. This time might be different," Dr. Keth warned from his position at the science station. "Intelligence suggests they've developed weapons specifically designed to counter our natural advantages." Admiral Voss nodded grimly. "Which brings us to our new allies." He looked around the room. "The humans have been with us for 3 months. It's time to see what they can really do." "You want to test them in combat?" General Nix asked. "I want to test them in simulation first. If war comes, I need to know if they're assets or liabilities." 2 hours later, Colonel Mike Foster stood in Simulation Bay 7 with his team of 12 human Marines. The bay was the size of a small city, capable of creating perfect recreations of any battlefield in Alliance history. Colonel Foster was a calm man with gray hair and steady eyes. He had served in 3 wars on Earth before joining the Alliance exchange program. His team trusted him completely. Watching from the observation deck, Admiral Voss felt nervous for the first time in decades. "Show them the Battle of Korvax Prime," he ordered. The simulation bay transformed. Artificial gravity fluctuated to match the high-gravity world where the Alliance had fought their greatest victory. The air became thick with toxic particles. The ground turned into sharp crystal formations that could cut through armor. "This is our most difficult combat scenario," General Nix explained to the other observers. It recreates the battle where we lost 60% of our forces but still achieved victory. And you're testing humans with it? Asked Captain Vex. The Colonel requested our most challenging simulation, Admiral Voss replied. Let's see if he regrets that request. Down in the simulation, Colonel Foster surveyed the battlefield. Enemy. Positions appeared as holographic markers scattered across the crystal landscape. His objective was simple: capture the central command post within 2 hours while under constant enemy fire. This is interesting, he said to his team over the comm system. Tactical assessment? Sergeant Bill North, his second in command, studied the terrain through his visor display. Gravity's about twice Earth normal. Air's toxic but manageable with filters. Ground cover is minimal. Enemy positions? Foster asked. 47 defensive points overlapping fields of fire. Classic fortress setup. Corporal Dave West, their demolitions expert, grinned behind his helmet. They've got us outnumbered 8-1. Standard Tuesday then, Foster replied calmly. Up. In the observation deck, the Alliance officers exchanged glances. Standard Tuesday? The simulation began. Immediately, the human team did something unexpected. Instead of advancing toward the objective, they spread out and began studying the battlefield more carefully. Why aren't they attacking? Captain Vex asked. They're thinking, Dr. Keth observed. Look at their movement patterns. The humans were indeed thinking, but not in any way the Alliance recognized. While Alliance tactics focused on endurance and direct assault, the humans were analyzing the battlefield like a puzzle to be solved. Sergeant North, take teams Alpha and Beta left. Use the crystal formations for cover, Colonel Foster ordered. Corporal West, I need shaped charges on the northern defensive line. Private Kate Ross, you're our spotter. Private Ross was the team's youngest member, but she had eyes like a hawk. She found a position on a crystal outcropping and began calling out enemy movements. 12 hostiles, Sector 7, 23 in the main bunker. Wait. She paused, studying her scanner. Colonel, they're using predictable patrol patterns. Time intervals? Every 47 seconds like clockwork. Colonel Foster smiled. The Alliance fought with discipline and courage, but they also fought with predictable patterns. Teams were going to dance with them. What happened next would be discussed in Alliance tactical schools for years afterward. The humans didn't just attack the enemy positions. They turned the battlefield into a symphony of coordinated movement. When enemy patrols moved left, human teams appeared on the right. When defensive fire focused on one position, attacks came from 3 others. How are they moving so fast in high gravity? General Nix asked. They're not fighting the gravity, Dr. Keth realized. They're using it. Watch how they time their jumps. The humans had quickly adapted to the heavy gravity, using it to their advantage. When they jumped, they came down hard and fast. When they took cover, they stayed low and moved like they were part of the landscape. But it was their teamwork that truly amazed the observers. The humans communicated constantly, sharing information, adjusting tactics in real time. They didn't just coordinate their actions. They anticipated each other's needs. Corporal West, charges ready? Colonel Foster asked. 30 seconds, sir. Private Ross, enemy response? They're shifting to counter your position, but they don't see West's team. Sergeant North? In position and ready to move on your signal. The charges exploded. Enemy positions that had seemed impregnable suddenly had holes in their defenses. Before the simulated enemies could react, human teams were through the gaps and moving toward the central objective. The Alliance had taken 18 hours to win the Battle of Korvax Prime. The humans completed the simulation in 43 minutes. In the observation deck, silence stretched like a physical thing. Run it again, Admiral Voss said quietly. Sir? Captain Vex asked. Run the simulation again. Different parameters. Make it harder. The second simulation recreated the Siege of Iron Gate, a battle the Alliance had lost. The gravity was even higher, the toxic atmosphere was worse, and the enemy had twice as many defensive positions. The humans completed it in 38 minutes. The third simulation was pure fiction, a scenario designed to be impossible. The Alliance tactical computer had created it as a training exercise in accepting defeat gracefully. The humans won in 22 minutes and asked if there was anything more challenging. Admiral Voss dismissed the other officers and stood alone in the observation deck, watching Colonel Foster's team as they reviewed their performance. The humans weren't celebrating their victory. They were analyzing what they could have done better. "Sergeant North, your approach to Sector 12 was too direct," Colonel Foster was saying. "Next time, try a flanking movement." "Understood. Sir, what about ammunition conservation?" "Good point. We use 60% of our supplies. In a real engagement, that might not be sustainable." They were critiquing a perfect victory because it wasn't perfect enough. Admiral Voss activated his communicator. "Dr. Keth, report to Simulation Bay 7 immediately." When the scientist arrived, Admiral Voss pointed at the humans. "What am I looking at?" Dr. Keth watched the human team for several minutes. "Evolutionary. Perfection," he said finally. "Explain." "Every species in the Alliance evolved to survive their homeworld. We became tough, resilient, hard to kill, but humans evolved to survive a world that was constantly trying to kill them in new ways. The difference being, we learned to endure, they learned to adapt. We survive by being stronger than our environment. They survive by being smarter than their challenges." Admiral Voss watched Colonel Foster demonstrate a tactical movement to his team. The human officer was patient, thorough, and completely focused on improvement. "Dr. Keth, I want you to run a projection for me." "What kind of projection?" "Assume we go to war with the hegemony. Assume we include human forces in our battle plans. What's the likely outcome?" Dr. Keth was quiet for a long time. "Admiral, I don't think you want to know the answer to that question. Tell me anyway." "We would win. Decisively. Probably within the first month of fighting." Admiral Voss should have felt relief. Instead, he felt cold fear spreading through his chest. "And after we win?" "After we win, we would have a galaxy where the most effective military force is a species that treats warfare like a logic puzzle and gets better every time they fight." Down in the simulation bay, Colonel Foster was setting up another training exercise. His team gathered around him, eager to face new challenges, ready to turn any obstacle into an opportunity for improvement. Admiral Voss realized that the Alliance had created something they couldn't control. They had invited humans to join them as junior partners, but partners who could outfight the Alliance's greatest enemies weren't going to stay junior for very long. "Cancel all further testing," Admiral Voss ordered. "Sir?" "We've seen enough, more than enough." He turned away from the observation window. "And Dr. Keth?" "Yes, Admiral." "Not a word about this to the Council. Not yet." As Admiral Voss left the simulation bay, he carried with him the knowledge that would soon change everything. The Alliance had wanted strong allies. Instead, they had found their replacements. The war began without warning. Hegemony fleets struck 3 Alliance border worlds simultaneously, their new weapons cutting through defensive positions like they were made of paper. Within 6 hours, 2 million Alliance citizens were dead. Admiral Voss stood in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Flame, watching reports stream in from the front lines. The massive dreadnought was 3 kilometers long and bristling with weapons that could crack planets. But even the mightiest ship felt small when facing total war. "Sir, we're getting confirmation from the Outer Rim," reported Captain Vex. "Hegemony. Forces have taken the Arcturus system. No survivors." General Nix's hologram flickered into view. "They're using some kind of focused energy weapon. It bypasses our armor completely. Our toughest ships are dying like insects." Admiral Voss felt something he hadn't experienced in decades: genuine fear. Not fear of death, which was always possible in war, but fear of defeat. Fear that the Alliance might actually lose. "What about human forces?" he asked. "Are they ready to deploy?" "Colonel Foster has been requesting combat assignment for the past week," General Nix replied. "His Marines are ready. But Admiral, after what we saw in the simulations..." "I know. Admiral Voss cut her off. But we need every advantage we can get. Deploy them to the Nexus Station front. Nexus Station was a critical supply hub located at the crossroads of 3 major hyperspace routes. If it fell, the hegemony could cut Alliance territory in half. Traditional Alliance tactics would have stationed their toughest warriors there for a grinding defensive battle. The humans had other ideas. Captain Ryan Walsh commanded the human forces at Nexus Station. He was younger than Colonel Foster, but had earned his rank through 3 brutal campaigns on Earth. His unit consisted of 200 Marines who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignments the Alliance could offer. When the hegemony attack fleet arrived at Nexus Station, they expected to face the same kind of defense they had easily broken at other Alliance worlds. Instead, they found something that shouldn't have been possible. The station was empty. "Sir, we're detecting no defensive positions," reported the hegemony fleet commander to his superior over subspace radio. "No ships, no weapons platforms, no personnel. It's like they abandoned it." "Impossible," came the reply. "Nexus Station is too important. It must be a trap. What are your orders?" "Take the station, but be careful." The hegemony fleet moved forward cautiously. Their ships were sleek and elegant, built for speed and precision rather than the brutal durability of Alliance vessels. They approached Nexus Station with weapons ready, expecting an ambush that never came. They docked with the station and began sending boarding parties. The corridors were empty, but the lights were still on. Life support was running normally. Everything suggested a hasty evacuation. That's when Captain Walsh sprung his trap. The humans hadn't abandoned Nexus Station. They had turned it into a weapon now, Walsh said quietly into his communicator. Throughout the station, hidden charges exploded. But these weren't random explosions meant to destroy the facility. They were precisely calculated detonations designed to disable the docked hegemony ships without destroying them completely. Simultaneously, human teams that had been hiding in maintenance shafts and cargo holds revealed themselves. They moved through the station like ghosts, striking at enemy boarding parties and disappearing before counterattacks could be organized. "What's happening?" the hegemony fleet commander demanded as his ships began reporting system failures. "Some kind of sabotage, sir. They've damaged our engines and weapons but left life support intact. It's like they want to capture our ships rather than destroy them." "That's exactly what they want," came a new voice over the communication channel. The hegemony officers froze. The voice was calm, confident, and speaking perfect hegemony standard. "This is Captain Ryan Walsh of the Human Marines. You have 2 options. Surrender now, or find out why humans are considered the most dangerous species in Alliance space." "Humans?" The fleet commander's voice cracked slightly. "I thought they were just a primitive species the Alliance recruited." "Sir," one of his officers interrupted, "we're detecting movement throughout the station, lots of movement." On the tactical displays, the hegemony could see heat signatures moving through every level of Nexus Station, but the movement patterns made no sense. The signatures appeared, disappeared, and reappeared in places that should have been impossible to reach so quickly. "They're using the maintenance systems," another officer realized. "They know every corridor, every shaft, every hidden passage." "Captain," Walsh's voice came through the speakers again. "You have 30 seconds to respond to our surrender demand." "This is Fleet Commander Voss of the Hegemony Navy," the commander replied, trying to sound confident. "We outnumber you 10 to 1. Your position is hopeless." "Actually," Walsh said calmly, "you're trapped inside our position. There's a difference." What followed was unlike any battle in recorded galactic history. The humans didn't fight like Alliance warriors, who would charge forward and absorb massive casualties to achieve their objectives. They fought like hunters who had studied their prey for months. Every hegemony move was anticipated. Every tactical decision was countered before it could be implemented. When hegemony forces tried to regroup in the station's main hangar, they found the area filled with obstacles that channeled them into carefully prepared kill zones. When they attempted to retreat to their ships, they discovered that human engineers had already disabled the docking systems. The ships were trapped, unable to detach from the station. "Sir," a hegemony officer reported frantically, They're not trying to kill us, they're hurting us. It was true. The humans were using minimum necessary force, wounding rather than killing, capturing rather than destroying. They moved through the station like they owned it, because in many ways, they did. They had studied the blueprints, memorized every system, and turned the facility into an extension of their own tactical thinking. Watching from his flagship, Admiral Voss received reports that seemed impossible. "The humans have taken Nexus Station?" he asked Captain Vex. "Yes, sir. But they didn't defend it in any traditional sense. They used it as bait, then turned the entire facility into a trap. The hegemony fleet is intact but completely captured. Casualties? 17 humans wounded, none killed. Hegemony losses are minimal, mostly unconscious crew members who were stunned rather than eliminated." Admiral Voss stared at the tactical display. A human force of 200 had captured a hegemony fleet of 50 ships with 3,000 crew members, and they had done it without significant bloodshed on either side. "Get me Captain Walsh," he ordered. A few minutes later, Captain Walsh's image appeared on the main screen. The human officer looked tired but alert. Behind him, hegemony prisoners were being processed by human Marines. "Captain, report your status," Admiral Voss said. "Nexus Station is secure, Admiral. We have captured 47 enemy vessels and approximately 3,000 prisoners. The station's strategic position is maintained." "How?" Admiral Voss asked. "Our intelligence suggested the hegemony fleet was superior to anything we could field." Captain Walsh smiled. "With respect, Admiral, intelligence was correct about their technology. Their ships are faster, and their weapons are more advanced than ours. Then how did you win?" "We didn't fight their ships, sir. We fought their assumptions." Admiral Voss didn't understand, and his expression must have shown it. "The hegemony expected us to fight like alliance forces," Walsh explained. "Strong, direct, willing to absorb casualties to achieve objectives. Instead, we fought like humans. Which means we turned their strengths into weaknesses. Their advanced ships became trapped cargo when we disabled the docking systems. Their superior numbers became a disadvantage when we forced them to fight in small groups. Their better technology didn't help them when the real battle was about understanding the battlefield itself." Admiral Voss felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. "What are your recommendations for future engagements?" "Give us more challenging assignments," Walsh said without hesitation. "This was a good warm-up, but we're ready for real combat operations." Admiral Voss ended the transmission and stood alone in his command center. Through the viewports, he could see the stars that had been Alliance territory for centuries. Soon, if the war went as Captain Walsh seemed to expect, those stars would be under human protection. The thought should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified him. General Nix's hologram appeared beside him. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender communications from Hegemony High Command. They want to open peace negotiations immediately." "They're surrendering?" The war just started. Apparently, news of the Nexus Station battle has reached their leadership. They are requesting terms. Admiral Voss understood. The hegemony had seen what humans could do with minimal resources and limited support. They were intelligent enough to realize what would happen if humans were given the full backing of the Alliance war machine. "Schedule the negotiations," he ordered. "And General?" "Yes, Admiral? Make sure the human representatives are present. It seems our new allies will be doing most of the talking from now on." As General Nix's hologram faded, Admiral Voss realized that the war was over before it had truly begun. The Alliance had won, but the victory belonged to humanity, and that changed everything. 6 months after the hegemony surrender, Admiral Voss walked through the corridors of Titan Base and no longer recognized his own command. The walls still bore the same volcanic stone. The air still carried the familiar scent of sulfur and metal. But everything else had changed. Human efficiency had infected every system. Where Alliance personnel once took 3 hours to complete routine maintenance, mixed human-alien teams finished the same work in 45 minutes. Where supply requisitions used to require 5 different approvals, humans had streamlined the process to one signature with better security than the old system. They hadn't demanded these changes. They had simply started doing things better, and everyone else had naturally followed their lead. Admiral Voss paused outside the medical bay and watched through the transparent aluminum windows. Dr. Lisa Park was teaching a class to Alliance medical personnel. The human doctor had revolutionized their approach to trauma treatment by applying what she called combat medicine principles. The key is to treat the injury like an enemy that must be defeated, she was explaining to her mixed-species audience. Don't just repair the damage. Understand why it happened and prevent it from happening again. Dr. Keth, once the Alliance's chief medical researcher, now served as her assistant. The gray-skinned scientist hung on her every word like a student, learning from a master. Admiral Voss continued walking. In the engineering section, he found similar scenes. Tony Blake, a human engineer, had redesigned their ship construction protocols by studying how humans built things on Earth, not just for function, but to survive in hostile environments. Every system needs 3 backups, Tony was explaining, to a group of Alliance engineers. But more importantly, every backup needs to be different from the primary system. If one fails, you need to know the others won't fail for the same reason. The Alliance had always built tough ships. Human-designed ships were tough, smart, and adaptable. They could literally rebuild themselves during combat if necessary. But it was in the command center that Admiral Voss encountered the most disturbing change. Ambassador Rachel Green sat at what used to be the secondary command station, coordinating with Alliance leaders across the galaxy. The human diplomat had restructured their entire communication network, making it faster, more secure, and more responsive than anything they had previously achieved. Admiral Voss. She greeted him warmly. Perfect timing. The council meeting is about to begin. Admiral Voss took his place at the main command chair, but he noticed that most of the other Alliance leaders were looking at Ambassador Green rather than him. She had become the person they turned to for solutions, guidance, and leadership. The holographic council chamber materialized around them. General Nix appeared from her flagship, Commander Zek from the Outer Systems, and the other Alliance leaders from their various posts. But now, human advisors stood beside each of them. The quarterly efficiency reports, General Nix announced. Production is up 40% across all sectors. Resource waste is down by 60%. Response times for military operations have improved by 70%. Excellent news, Admiral Voss said. But the numbers didn't make him happy. They terrified him. There's more, Commander Zek added. The new human-designed training programs have reduced injury rates by 80%, while improving combat effectiveness by 50%. Captain Vex, Admiral Voss's own aide, cleared his throat. Sir, there's something else we need to discuss. What? Recruitment numbers. Every species in Alliance space is requesting human advisors. The waiting list for human-led programs now extends for 2 years. Admiral Voss felt a cold weight in his stomach. And human population numbers? Ambassador Green answered smoothly. Growing steadily. Human families are adapting well to life throughout Alliance space. Birth rates are up, and our children are being raised in integrated communities across 12 different worlds. How many humans are there now in Alliance space? Approximately 2 million, with another million expected to arrive in the next year as Earth continues its colonization program. Admiral Voss did quick mental calculations. In less than a year, humans had gone from being rare curiosities to comprising nearly 10% of the Alliance's total population. At this rate, they would be the majority within a decade. What about Earth itself? He asked. Still growing, Ambassador Green replied. Current population is approaching 8 billion. They're very interested in establishing trade relationships with Alliance worlds. 8 billion. The Alliance's total population, across 12 species, was only 30 million. Earth alone had more people than the rest of the Alliance combined. After the meeting ended, Admiral Voss found himself alone with General Nix's hologram. We need to talk, he said quietly. I was hoping you'd say that, General Nix replied. Private channel? Admiral Voss activated the security protocols. What's your assessment of the current situation? Honestly, we're being replaced. Not conquered, not defeated, just made obsolete. Explain. General Nix's image flickered as she organized her thoughts. Every human innovation makes us better at what we do. But it also makes us less necessary. They don't take control by force, they take control by being indispensable. Examples. My own command staff now includes 3 human advisors. When I make decisions, I find myself asking, what would the humans do? When problems arise, my first instinct is to consult with them. They've become the standard by which we measure competence. Admiral Voss understood. The same thing was happening throughout his own command structure. But they're helping us, he said. Our efficiency is up, our casualty rates are down, our technology is improving. That's exactly the problem, General Nix replied. We're becoming dependent on their help. And dependence becomes subordination, even when nobody intends it. Admiral Voss walked to his viewport and looked out at the stars. What's the alternative? They haven't threatened us. They haven't made demands. They're model citizens and allies. I know. That's what makes this so terrifying. That evening, Admiral Voss visited the station's recreation area. Human families were there, children playing games that looked like military training exercises. Alliance young ones joined in eagerly, learning human games, human strategies, human ways of thinking. He watched a human child, no more than 8 years old, teach a group of young Alliance members how to play something called Capture the Flag. The rules were simple, but the strategy was complex. The human child naturally took command, organizing teams, assigning roles, adapting tactics in real time. The Alliance children followed her lead without question. It seemed natural to them. Admiral Voss realized he was looking at the future. A generation of Alliance citizens who would grow up thinking like humans, solving problems like humans, leading like humans. He found Dr. Keth in the medical bay, working late on research that had been inspired by human innovations. Doctor, I need your honest assessment of our situation. Dr. Keth looked up from his work. Which situation, Admiral? Our military position? Our technological advancement? Our social integration? Our survival as an independent alliance? Dr. Keth was quiet for a long moment. Admiral, we invited humans because we thought they were like us, tough survivors who had earned their place through hardship. But they're not like us. No, we're warriors who learn to survive. They're problem solvers who learn to fight. We adapt to our environment. They adapt their environment to themselves. Admiral Voss sat down heavily. What happens next? I think we become part of something larger, Dr. Keth said. Not through conquest, but through evolution. Humans don't destroy what they encounter. They improve it, optimize it, integrate it into something better. And if we resist? Resist what? They haven't attacked us, haven't made demands, haven't threatened our independence. They've just been helpful. Admiral Voss understood the trap they had fallen into. Humans had made themselves necessary not through force but through competence. They had become the solution to every problem, the answer to every challenge, the standard by which success was measured. The alliance will survive, Dr. Keth continued, but it will be a human-led alliance. Not because they conquered us, but because we chose to follow them. As Admiral Voss returned to his quarters, he passed through corridors filled with humans and alliance members working together. They were building something new. Not human civilization, not alliance civilization, but something that combined the best of both. It should have made him proud. Instead, it made him understand why some invitations could never be withdrawn. The Deathworld Alliance had invited humans as junior partners. Within a year, they had become indispensable advisors. Within a generation, they would be natural leaders. Not through conquest, but through competence. Not through force, but through excellence. Not through war, but through being so useful that life without them became unimaginable. Admiral Voss stood at his window looking out at stars that had been Alliance territory for centuries. Soon they would still be Alliance stars, but the Alliance would be something entirely different. Humanity had arrived not as conquerors, but as collaborators. And that, Admiral Voss realized, was far more dangerous than any army could ever be. The invitation had been extended in hope of gaining strong allies. Instead, they had invited their own transformation. And there was no going back